Lingua Franca is kind of a risky proposition in that although it's very much of its time, it's also not a conventional film of its kind. Like I said, I mean, it touches on social issues. And you expect that kind of movie, that a social issue drama, to be angry and loud, and kind of preachy a little, and didactic. But this film, can be polarizing and divisive because it's not interested in giving, easy answers to complex questions.
This Filipino American Life is a podcast that explores the nuanced experiences of Filipinos in the United States at Iba Pa. My name is Elaine Delalis, and I'm joined by my fellow hosts,
Ryan Carpio,
Kat Carrido Bonds,
and
Mike.
Producer Mike.
Yay!
Yay!
Well, this is special.
Hey, what's happening? Where's Joe?
Who?
Who?
Joe?
Hey, we got Kat now, so
We got
Sorry,
Kat
Joe.
now.
Yay,
Carrido
Kat.
Bonds. Pew, 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 pew.
Hi everybody.
so nice to have you on, Kat.
It's so nice to be here with y'all. I love you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you
For those that don't know, Joe is taking a little bit of a break for personal reasons. No, Joe's not with us right now, but Kat is, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
That is all that matters. Miss
That's
you,
right.
Joe.
We miss
Do
you,
we?
Joe.
Do we?
You do.
Oh,
Enjoy taking care of your little baby that we all want to chomp the cheeks of.
this is a very happy podcast. We're very happy for you, Joe. We do miss you, even though I was
And
pretending I wasn't.
congrats.
Yeah, and congratulations. Okay, Elaine,
Yes.
do we have a T-Pal of the episode?
Yes. The TFAL of that episode is Liselle Sierra.
Liselle.
Ryan doesn't know you.
Hi,
Don't even-
Liselle. Liselle Sierra. Well, I don't know Liselle, but oh my goodness, Liselle, thank you so much for being a T-Pal of the episode and a Patreon. You can also be a T-Pal of the episode if you become a Patreon, right, Elaine?
Yeah. If you
Yeah.
go to thisfilipinoamericanlife.com and hit support TFAL, it'll take you to the link and you can support us that way.
Yes, please do, because we love you and you love us. We know that. And even if you didn't love us, support us. It'll be good. It's good for the soul. It's like chicken soup, right?
Sure.
Tinola.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Thanks, Kat. Tinola. Tinola for the soul.
I'm not a Patreon. Is that okay?
You're not?
No, are
I
you
mean,
guys?
Yeah, no.
I mean,
I think
No,
you've had
are
you've
the
invested
person.
much
Yes.
into
I mean, as somebody who works at a philanthropic organization in which we also donate to our own organization,
so are you
I'm
saying
maybe like
Oh.
putting out a challenge to some of you to see if you want to.
You know what,
do
Mike?
that as
That's
well.
very, very good point. I can't wait for you to be a Patreon, Mike. Log on to our website and click support TFAL.
Totally do it. I have access to Elaine's bank account. It's totally
Yes.
it was
That's how you do it.
crap?
Okay. No voicemails, but there is a
Oh,
message
whoa.
from a fan.
But we have a text message, and
Oh.
I'm gonna read it in my best text
No,
message
don't.
12-year-old voice because yes. All right.
That's
So, let me get into character. Hold on.
Wow.
Yo, I hope this is TFAL. I'm half Pinoy, half puti, born and raised in DC. Strong arm emoji. I'm 12, still being raised in DC, but I just wanted to say born and raised. I love what y'all do, just the laughs y'all bring whenever I listen. This long texting is weird, but thanks so much for doing this podcast, and I love the accents and Pinoy stereotypes. Laughing emoji, thanks. So thanks, person from DC,
12-year-old.
12-year-old from the
That's so
240
awesome.
area code.
Yeah. Dude, that's
I hope
awesome.
I hope
That's
I did
great.
your text message
Yay.
justice.
Yo, that's cool. That person.
Yeah, we're
is-
old guys.
We're old.
He's the
If
next
this was
gen.
The TikTok I wouldn't be able to do.
Yo, let's TikTok together or something.
Oh my God, can you imagine if there was a
No.
TFL TikTok?
I don't know.
What would that
12-year-old.
look like?
Yo, let's. I don't know.
It would just be Joe doing the Toto.
We should literally totally start an account, and it'll just be like 100 videos of just Joe doing the Toto. Like in a row. Like everything is just, yeah.
Yeah.
And different backgrounds.
Yeah, different backgrounds.
It's like when old people take over TikTok.
That's hilarious.
All right. Well, anyway. Well, what's our topic for today? What are we talking about?
We're talking about a film that is dropping today on Netflix.
What? Dropping?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Dropping. Is that the right language? Am I cool and hip?
I don't know.
I think so. Released. And you guys, it's not even Filipino American History Month. Can you imagine?
Oh my
Isn't that
god.
great? Isn't that great? Like we're in like
We're
regular
in.
land. We're in.
Yay! Wait.
So Lingua
us more about
Franca is
Lingua
available on Netflix today,
Nice.
Wednesday, August 26th.
That's awesome.
If you are listening to this and you haven't seen it, why not watch it? Hopefully you have. Or this will make you want to watch it because 5 p.m. Pacific time, Cinema Sala is doing a live tweet today, Wednesday, August 26th, of Lingua Franca. So the hashtag is Lingua Franca Watch Party. Ryan,
Cool.
what is Lingua Franca?
What do you mean? Like the movie that you just
Yeah,
announced?
why did you? Why don't you tell us about the movie, right?
Or the words themselves. What is lingua franca?
Take your pick.
Lingua means tongue, and Franca means Franca. Mono
Franca
means
tongue.
one, and rail means rail. Actually,
I
don't know
just
what
go-
lingua franca means. Kat, you're new. How about you?
No, I was just reading the synopsis of the film.
Give me the
I'm just kidding.
synopsis.
Okay, lingua franca is about Olivia, who's played by Isabel Sandoval, who also directed and co-wrote or wrote the film.
Wrote the film.
Is about an undocumented Filipino trans woman working as a caregiver to Olga, an elderly Russian woman in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn. When Olivia runs out of options to attain legal status in the U.S., she becomes romantically involved with Alex, Olga's
Ooh.
adult grandson, in the pursuit of a marriage-based green card. Yeah, man,
Ooh.
that's a good
It's a
one.
lot.
And
There's
then
a
they
lot.
get
There's a
married
lot
and live
going on.
happily ever after.
There you go.
Way to
Or
spoil
do
it,
it.
Mike.
Spoiler
You should
alert.
watch it till the end to see if Mike is in
Is
fact
correct.
spoiling it. Yeah.
and if he is not, and if he is right, you should leave a 5-star comment. Hashtag Mike was right.
There you go.
That'll never be the case ever for about anything.
So this is not your Gerard Depardieu film. This is not about sorry,
You-
it's a throwback to the movie Green Card. This is not your
Oh,
your,
Green Card. Oh my God. I hadn't even thought about that movie. That is a throwback.
yes.
I don't think our texter guest would have understood
Hey.
that reference. That was like from
I'm gonna
2-3
make this go
generations ago.
viral. TikTok. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. But
No, because that film was from 1990, so our texter was even.
our texter's like back in the day when my parents were. I'm just kidding.
Do you know who Andy McDowell is? Because that's who stars in this film.
Andy McDowell and Gerard Depardieu.
my
I know this is not a plug for Green Card. This is a plug for Lingua Franca. Anyway, but super excited about this film being on Netflix. I think that's amazing. And
Yeah, I think to your point, like, if Green Card is the only film that you can think of to reference in relation
Right,
to this film, it makes
The
you wonder,
length-
like, have there been like recent films that have been worth,
Right.
like, especially talking about like, kind of from a Filipino perspective, the next perspective, like, I can't think of too many At least in the way that this movie approaches it. It's very, very different.
Right.
But
And
I won't spoil any more about it other than the happy ending.
thanks, Mike.
Hashtag Mike is right. Hashtag Mike is wrong. Whatever you think in a 5-star review, leave a comment.
But I do have a question in terms of like how to watch this. What is a watch party?
Oh, a watch
You
party.
watch
So like
together.
at 5 p.m. someone is you are in your home, you have Netflix, you pull up Lingua Franca and you watch it, and then you pull up on your phone or on your computer, you pull up Twitter, and then you follow the hashtag Lingua Franca watch party, and then you could tweet at Cinema Sala or tweet at Array because they will be tweeting about the film, and so you participate in the discussion.
That's cool. That's cool. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit I have not been to a watch party in that way. Like a Netflix watch party where you watch the same movie and do that. Usually
you can do that with an app on your, and then so everybody's watching it all together. But that's not necessarily what's happening. This is just like on Twitter, so like everybody is watching at the same time.
Right. That's cool. Wow, technology these days, especially during COVID. I appreciate it, Netflix.
The creativity, I tell you.
Yeah. But and we'll be able to talk to anyone from the film today.
Yes, we'll be talking to Isabel Sandoval.
Yes, we will. Yay.
The lead, Olivia, the writer and director, Isabel Sandoval.
That's awesome. And she will be on right after our little break here. But before we get to do that, I know I reference Mike was talking about this. I know I referenced like Green Card like as an old movie, but I've actually gotten a chance to see this movie, so I liked it. I thought it was really, really cool. You guys should check it out. And Netflix is a pretty big deal, right? This is a pretty huge deal for this movie, and it's done its traveling and it's gotten great reviews. So I hope you guys do get a chance to sit down and watch this. Even if you're not able to do it with the watch party, I'm going to try to do that. But it's
made the festival circuit. It's won a bunch of awards. Isabel's won a bunch of awards. So like for sure, let's support our fellow Filipino filmmakers and watch this film.
But before we do that, I do want to acknowledge that Kat, welcome.
Hi.
How does it feel?
I know feels great.
Yeah, you're not really a guest because you're kind of one of us. So
one of us.
I was gonna do like pretend that I'm Joe and start, go Clippers! I'm Joe Bernardo.
No. All right,
guys, I'm Joe Bernardo. I have dad jokes and I'm a Clipper fan. Huh.
No Clipper fan. No.
Yeah. but I did want to, instead of doing that, I wanted to welcome Kat and see if how does it feel? You look amazing.
Thank you. I put eyebrows on for y'all today.
Yeah.
Thank you. I did not.
and hoops, But
and you sound great.
You.
So yeah, it's been.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. What have
Thank you for being a supporter and for always helping us through our stuff.
Always, it's an honor to.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Kat is basically part of TFAL, part of the extended family, part of like the folks behind the scenes who kind of helps us, keep it together and kind of figure it all out. And so, it might be, Joe, Ryan, Elaine, and I on the mic, and sometimes Gurley. But there's a whole community and a whole family of folks that make TFAL what it is, and Kat's definitely a big part of that. And so nice to have you on here.
Absolutely, Mike.
Thanks.
Thank you. Kat, now that you have the microphone, what would you like to say to our audience out there about yourself, about the podcast, about Joe being a Clipper fan now?
Laker fan.
Anything. You have the microphone. This is very, very powerful. Don't mute her, Mike.
What do I even say?
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
no, but I love TFAL. you make me belly laugh all the time, and that obviously this episode or me being a co-host is no different. I definitely cannot fill the large shoes of Mr. Todo Todo himself, but I'm definitely glad to sub in. This is great. But what would I tell everyone? Keep listening. Do all the 5-star reviews. Support, donate, tell your friends.
After you are done watching Lingua Franca, you should watch the Uprisers live at home at Beat Rock.
Yes.
Music. And you could catch Classy, Ruby Ibarra, and Prometheus Brown, who we've talked to on the podcast, Gio.
Yes. So shout out to my crew, Beat Rock Music, and all the wonderful, wonderful artists that are putting out good music, wonderful music, as Lainey mentioned. So please check it out and continue to support. But I don't know what else is going on.
I don't know. You have any dad jokes?
You want to do a dad joke?
No, you. Or mom joke?
Golly, no.
I know.
They just kind of have to come naturally, like you hear
You
something
can't
and then you talk some ish.
Yeah, we miss Joe.
He would have one. He would have one.
Yeah, he would have one. Oh, history point, guys. I'm Joe Bernardo. Spanish colonialism. Clippers, go.
No.
No, it would be something very amazingly obscure.
Yeah. I can't do it justice because I don't know any history.
What was the name of the 19th century, mid-19th century storyteller from the forest, the northernmost point of the Philippines, who came to
it was Joseph Bernardo the First. He wrote a proclamation in Baybayin that the Lakers were the best team in the land.
Oh God.
Anyways, as you can tell, we are talking in the middle of playoffs, so we are house semi-divided, but not really, because Joe is not a Clippers fan. So it's just everyone against Ryan. So
I know.
Sorry, Ryan.
It's okay. But I do want to be able to. Joe can't defend himself, so it's kind of nice. But we do miss you, Joe. But I think we're gonna take a quick commercial break, right? And then when we come back, we will be with our special guest, Isabel Sandoval, and talk a little bit about the movie Lingua Franca and her interest in film. And so don't go anywhere. Listen to our commercial and we'll be right back.
Hey, do you know of a way that I could support TFAL besides being on the show and giving you all this cool entertainment?
How?
I could buy Ryan a Ko-fi.
A Ko-fi? What's a Ko-fi?
A Ko-fi is a way that I can give TFAL some money just for a one-time situation. Like if I have an extra $10, I'll buy TFAL a $10 cup of coffee.
Do we actually get Ko-fi?
We get the money, so it's like that's the coffee.
That's cool.
Coffee.
Isn't there a subscription service too?
Yeah, you could be a TFAL Patreon.
Oh, how does that work?
You contribute monthly by like $5, $10,
$100,
$100. If you want to do $1,000 because you're just so inclined. But yeah, you become a TFAL Patreon, and by doing so, we shout you out on the episode, and we do things on our special Patreon sometimes. But yeah, you could buy us coffee or you could monthly contribute to us.
Oh, and we could buy all this new equipment.
Yes.
Yes, and we could go to different places to interview people around the country.
Yes, and you support this entertainment that you are getting for free.
Oh, man, that's
we
so awesome.
We are doing this for free, aren't we?
Because I'm sick of spending money, my own pocket money. I'm doing it. Because I have a lot of bills too,
That's right.
Yeah, so if you really love TFAL and you ever thought, I want to help those folks out, be a Patreon or buy us some Ko-fi.
And where do you go?
You go to thisfilipinoamericanlife.com, and under support, there will be links for the Patreon and for the Ko-fi.
Cool. Thank you.
Woo! Good
Yes,
commercial.
I hope. Great commercial. Rate us 5 stars. Enjoy the what else? Buy a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Something.
All the
Or,
good things.
or support us on Patreon. Whatever.
Yeah, all of those things. Call us on our phone number. What's that number, Ryan?
Oh,
Just
don't
kidding.
put me on the spot.
I'm not going to do
Kat,
that.
what's that number? Put
I don't
Kat
know.
on.
Don't do that to our guest hosts.
I know. I'm sorry.
But we're back and we have a really awesome guest. Her name is Isabel Sandoval, and she is writer, actor, director? Question mark? Am I right? I want to make sure I hit all of the things for the upcoming film Lingua Franca, which is now available on Netflix because we were releasing this on Wednesday, August 26th.
Wow.
And you should be able to watch it on Netflix right now. Yay! I would also like to plug that Cinema Sala, hosted by our good friend Marie Jamora, is hosting a live tweet event at 5 p.m. Pacific time, where they will be watching Lingua Franca, and the hashtag is Lingua Franca Watch Party. And I'll put that in the notes. Participate, join us, live tweet what your thoughts are on the movie.
This is exciting. Yes.
So welcome,
Very.
Isabel. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me in the podcast. Nice to
I'm
meet you
very excited. I'm excited because basta Bisaya ko. So I'm like, yay, another Bisaya. Okay, that's the length of my Bisaya language. Please don't try and talk to me because I will just look at you and smile and nod my head.
You know more than I, or I imagine Mike. I don't know. Kat, do you know any Bisaya?
Nope, I'm Ilocana, and I barely know Ilocano.
So Isabel, we wanted to welcome you to the podcast, and we're super excited about this new film. But before we get to talk a little bit about the film, we'd love to hear a little bit about yourself and where you're from, or your background, and how you got into filmmaking.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Cebu. I was there, I finished my undergraduate degree there. I have a degree in psychology. I spent grade school, high school, and college in a Catholic or Catholic adjacent school / university. And yeah, after I finished undergrad, I moved to Manila. I worked for a multinational company for a year doing brand management. So Unilever, I was associate manager for a hair conditioner brand. But I've always, been in love with movies, in love with cinema ever since I was a kid. So I thought of coming to the US and pursuing a master's degree, but in business. But although I have a master's degree in business, my specialization was marketing and media and entertainment. So I went to NYU to pursue my MBA. And while I was there, I interned for Focus Features in their international distribution department. So Focus Features was the company that released Brokeback Mountain, Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley. And yeah, that was when I didn't go to film school. But after, being in the US for almost 3 years, I've been based in New York for the most part. I decided to just take a plunge and start making movies. And so I made my first short film, which was really, my sensibility is not really shorts. I'm into feature length. So I made that first short film called Senorita, really just to raise funds for my feature. And so I developed the short into a full-length feature with the same title called Senorita. And that got into a prestigious film festival in Europe called Locarno in Switzerland. And then after that, the following year, so for Senorita, I flew back home to Cebu, back to my hometown to shoot it. Although we shot it in Tagalog. And the following year, I shot my second feature, which is again set in the Philippines, but this time it's set in 1971, which is a pivotal year in modern Philippine history. It's the year before Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law. So Apparition was about a group of monastic nuns secluded in the woods who find themselves under siege by the growing tumult and turbulence in the world outside. There are a lot of protests. And that one actually starred some pretty high-profile Filipina actresses like Jodie Santa Maria, Mylene Dizon. That was also quite well-traveled internationally. And then after that, I transitioned. And while I was transitioning, I started writing Lingua Franca, my third feature film. And about halfway through writing the script for Lingua Franca, Trump got elected into the White House.
Ay, Dios mío.
Yeah, and that kind of really colored the feel, the tone, and the premise for Lingua Franca, which is about an undocumented Filipina trans woman who's looking for a path to citizenship and becomes involved with a Russian Jewish slaughterhouse worker in Brooklyn, New York. So Lingua Franca is not autobiographical, but Olivia, the main character in the movie, and I are both Filipina trans women immigrants living in New York. And I finished the script in 2017. I was actually, when Trump got elected, I thought of shelving the project for at least a few months, just because, it was really a pretty anxious, tense time. And having just made a movie about martial law, I know what that kind of environment can lead to for activists, artists, and filmmakers who dare talk about the status quo and current situation. But my producers, who are also Filipino immigrants like myself, including Tony and Grammy Award-winning Broadway producer Jet Tolentino, told me, if there is a time to be making this movie, that time is now. So less than a year later, we started rolling on Lingua Franca. We shot it in mostly Brooklyn and some parts of Jersey. And, less than a year after we wrapped the shoot, Lingua Franca had its world premiere at the Venice International Film Festival, which was an amazing experience. It's traveled quite a lot internationally. Europe, Asia. We also had our Philippine premiere last October at the Q Cinema in Manila. And right now, very recently, it was released in cinemas in France in July to stellar reviews, and it did quite well at the box office. And very shortly after that, the film was very, very fortunate to be acquired by Ava DuVernay and her extraordinary distribution company, Array. And we just premiered Netflix.
Right.
Because this is airing, I think,
on the day.
So, it's been quite a journey for me in the film, and excited to get to this point.
I have a question about just specifically about the reception in the Philippines when you released there. How was it received? And I think about just like cinema in the Philippines. I don't know a lot of the newer films. I grew up here in the States, and most of the movies that I watched, Philippine movies that I watched, were from like the 80s and 90s. So it's very, very different now. But how was it received? in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it was, the reception was quite muted. I mean, it was, even though it, was by a Filipino director, it's still considered art house cinema. And it's not like, and obviously it's not mainstream or commercial. And it played at an international film festival there. So it was received, I think, as well as any international art house film would have been received there. I think it had some traction because Apparition, my movie about the nuns, was actually, highly acclaimed in the Philippines when it was released there a few years ago. And one of the most prominent critics groups in the Philippines actually nominated Lingua Franca for Best Picture and a few other awards back in the spring. And we won Best Performance for me. So I think it's done quite as well as it would have for a film that has been commercially released. We are talking to some potential distributors there, but the situation's complicated with the COVID and everything.
Mhm.
And it doesn't look like theaters are going to be reopening there anytime soon. But yeah, I mean, it's also, I think, the subject matter deals with a transgender woman, and it's not, like films and, TV shows that feature trans characters, they're almost always portray them in a comedic light. I guess
Right.
you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
Absolutely.
the very exaggerated, hyper feminized, flamboyant type character, and Olivia in this film is quite subdued.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was that's a good way to like describe the film. Like it is very subdued. It has like a realist tone cuz like there seems to be a new like forefront of trans storytelling right now in media, like with Pose, with Legendary, with Hollywood. I haven't seen Hollywoodland, but basically it feels like anything Ryan Murphy touches, it's incorporating trans people in there in the stories. But Ryan Murphy's storytelling is very camp. Like it's very I mean, it's camp. That's all I could really describe it as. And this is like the total opposite of camp. It's very like hyper real, and I'm not hyper, but it is like realism and like you were writing this story about a caregiver. Did you like meet with caregivers? Like for us in California, our caregivers tend like the clients can be Filipinos, they can be older white people. It ranges, right? But so is this a common story in that area of New York where Filipinas are caregivers for like the Russian immigrant community out there?
Yeah, there certainly are, Filipinas that work in different immigrant communities. I have a good friend who had worked as a caregiver for an elderly Greek guy in this neighborhood called Astoria in Queens. So Olivia and her experiences are a composite of, interviews and anecdotes based on real life experiences from friends of mine or people that I know or that was referred to. So that's why the story does have, a ring of realism to it and authenticity.
Mhm.
Like I know a few Filipinos, and not just Filipinos, but other immigrants from other countries who have arranged, green card marriages, for instance.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's realistic in that sense. That although the key premise itself is fictional, these are as I was developing the story, some episodes and scenes are based on real life experiences.
Like
So Isabel, you also star in this film, or you're the lead in this film. How, I know you've sort of talked about some of the realism of this. in terms of like the character, like story or the strength of this character, how close are you as Isabel to your character in the
I
film?
think in terms of personality, I mean, we're both reserved
Yeah.
type characters. I mean, some of the reviews that have come out of the film called both the film and my performance understated.
Mm.
And, I'm also quite an introverted person. And I guess that comes through in the film that, aside from being subdued, it's also kind of subtle and quiet. Yeah, so I think in terms of personality, there's quite a bit of similarity between me and Olivia.
Right.
And that's why I also wanted to do that, because it is an antidote or antithesis to the portrayals and depictions I've seen of trans women characters, especially in the Philippines. And, you know, if I stayed in the Philippines, I don't think I would have realized that I was trans, for instance, just because growing up, those are the images that I was exposed to, and I could just not relate to that or identify with that experience of being a trans woman. It was only after I moved to the US and, watching YouTube and seeing transgender individuals from different backgrounds. Some of them were working for non-profit organizations, some were writers, some were marketing people. And they were asked, some of them were married and had families, and they were asking themselves the same questions that I was asking myself. And that was actually when I realized that, perhaps I'm trans. And so, yeah, I wanted to convey that experience and my own, I guess, expression of femininity. That was just me, and that was not trying to be based on like some beauty pageant contestant wannabe. And I think there's something radical and revolutionary about, trans women that seem ordinary,
Mhm.
and especially in the first, I think, 10-15 minutes of the film, we're just immersing ourselves in her daily life and rituals with Olga, the Russian Jewish elderly lady. The camera is just there and, being observing Olivia in her natural environment.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the ordinary intimacy of the film. And I think even the context of this time where we're at, right? Like there's just so much. There is so much. And that was something I truly appreciate about watching, is that we could breathe with Olivia's experiences, if you will, and also some of it, as a Filipina, felt so familiar, family searching for a green card, marriage, it's a normal part of our culture and our life, and something that's understood as a kind of survival tactic, if you will, right? So yes, I think and I just love that the dimension that it adds to stories of trans people, that especially for us who are not trans, how it just kind of fills out a bigger story for us, and I definitely love that. And also too, I learned, I had no idea about Brighton Beach and Coney Island and Russian Jewish folks there. So to watch a Filipino film and to learn about yet another culture was great for me. I was like, so after that, I was like, okay, so who's at Brighton Beach? And I was very interested about your choice of Brighton Beach and Russian Jewish, first, second gen, and that choice. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm a big cinephile. So one of the major influences on me as a filmmaker is James Gray, actually. He very recently directed Ad Astra last year with Brad Pitt. But his earlier films were mostly set in Brighton Beach. He's Russian Jewish himself, although he grew up in Queens, but he set a few films in Brighton Beach, like Two Lovers with Joaquin Phoenix and Gwyneth Paltrow over 10 years ago. And he's a classicist filmmaker. And I kind of lean towards that style and sensibility. Brighton Beach is also kind of a very self-contained neighborhood that it has its own distinctive culture and character. And as you can see, like in that neighborhood, it's, very different from, say, Manhattan, or the hipster Brooklyn neighborhood in Lena Dunham's Girls, or even Spike Lee's, take on New York City. And, I was just in love with that. There is a kind of quaint remoteness to Brighton Beach that really drew me. And I felt like by setting my story there, the neighborhood itself felt like it was stuck in the 1950s or 1960s. So I felt like I was making a period film at the same time. And I think I really wanted to make a film that, while on paper it sounds like a social issue drama, it touches on immigration, the transgender experience in the US, that I'm able to put my unique stamp as a filmmaker, in terms of tone, atmosphere, style. And I think, as a neighborhood and as a setting for my story, it gave me the perfect opportunity to do that.
Yeah, it's sort of in that kind of not quite like Wes Anderson kind of way of kind of like picking like a place that can be very self-contained and you can't quite place it exactly time-wise or even locationally, but it has its own character so that it stands out, not in like that kind of diorama style, like Wes Anderson style, but just like it just feels like it kind of adds to the interiority of the story, because its story is it's a very inside story, and like having it in a place like Brighton Beach kind of helps kind of emphasize the kind of inner experiences that are happening, between the main characters. So I thought that was really like interesting.
And I also thought that, that setting compared with plus the cinematography and the rhythm of the film, I felt, it made me think that I was making a contemporary film that also felt timeless. So
I see that. I felt
it kind of like evoked for me like that, like the gritty like 70s era of New York.
Yeah,
like that's what it felt like when I like on watching it, because like the subjects of it is of the now, like hearing Trump on the radio or on the news, and then seeing ICE in a certain scene. I'm like, that is now, like that's 2020, right? But then on like just visually, it felt very like I could place that in an era of like a Midnight Cowboy, or like or of like a Taxi, where everything is just like New York grit, but it's not Manhattan, right? It's Brighton Beach. So it's still like you still get like that, like you said, that like small town type feel. And I was also fascinated with how everything is so layered, right? Like your story, your character's story, Olivia's story is so layered, like from like as a documented Filipino trans caregiver. And then Alex's story, the male lead, is also very layered. He's like the grandson of a Russian immigrant, and he's trying to have like, it feels like a comeback story, and that he was like, I'm spoiler work. I hope I'm not giving anything really much away, but it's like he's kind of like a classic like prodigal son coming back, trying to make his way back, trying to figure it out back in his hometown. And like these are everyday stories that like folks do, and like it's like your two characters come together, and then it's like comes together in this 2020 world of like trying to find a green card, Trump putting all these stupid laws, ICE being ICE, and we don't care for that. You know, all of these things. And watching Olivia's journey through, like, there was a moment where she's just like, I don't know how much time I have. And I literally was like, yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly it. None of us do, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Isabel, I wanted to ask a little bit about this podcast. We always want to champion the idea of representation. You know, we've been doing this Filipino American life for a few years now, and we were super nervous about. We were talking about the nerves that we had just trying to start this podcast, and we're not even live or anything like that, and we're organically trying to grow that audience to listen to our stories. Now, I wanted to take a step back from the film itself, but to talk about representation and you being a self-proclaimed cinephile and what's been portrayed out there. How has it been different to be able to have a story, a Filipino story or an immigrant story that's played by immigrants, a trans Filipina story played by a trans person? How has that been to you personally? Has that been something? I know you said you wanted to put this film away for a little bit when Trump got elected, but has it changed? Has it differed? Has it empowered you more? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's definitely empowered me more. Lingua Franca is kind of a risky proposition in that, although it's very much of its time, it's also not a conventional film of its kind. Like I said, I mean, it touches on social issues. And you expect that kind of movie, that a social issue drama, to be angry and loud, and kind of preachy a little, and didactic. But this film, can be polarizing and divisive because it's not interested in giving, easy answers to complex questions, but it's trying to ask thought-provoking, complicated questions, and the emotions that it evokes are, subtle, even maybe ambivalent or contradictory. And so by taking that risk, I wasn't sure how well it would be received, but I took enough. I knew exactly the vision that I wanted for the film, and I took enough creative and aesthetic risks in telling the story. And when it got into Venice, for that particular section, we were told that they, screened over 1,000 features, and they picked a final 11 films. I felt vindicated. I felt like not only was I validated as an artist and as a Filipino filmmaker, I realized that I'm allowed to make a different kind of art house Filipino cinema, because the Filipino films that get programmed abroad are usually, and I don't mean to disparage, I love the work of these master filmmakers, the gritty, social realist docudramas that are set in slums.
It's like the poverty porn that always comes, and then it's like,
and this is kind of a lyrical, sensual, delicate drama. And when it was released in France to great reviews, and it also did decently at the box office, that made me realize, okay, like my style has a place in the market internationally. Plus, it got picked up, by Array and Ava DuVernay, and that's only encouraged me to take even more risks with my next project. I just finished the script for my next project, which is called Tropical Gothic.
I'm sorry, repeat that. Sorry, I interrupted with my woohoo. What's it called?
Tropical Gothic.
Ooh.
Set in the 16th century in the Philippines. It's about the haunting of a Spanish colonizer by a native priestess.
Oh
What
my
Yeah.
property and farmland by the colonizers. And, it recently got into Locarno for their film, development market. So we met with a lot of European co-producers and they were very interested because Lingua Franca did quite well. I brought in, it certainly raised my profile as a filmmaker, but I was telling my producer, like one of our mentors there said that, you shouldn't just go for like the independent producers. I think this has a shot at breaking through commercially. So you should aim for the likes of Gael Garcia Bernal and Javier Bardem. And
I got goosebumps.
the script reminded them of The Piano by Jane Campion. And
Yeah.
you know what? Having heard that from an experienced British French producer, I was telling my Filipino producer, you know what? If they see this much potential in the project, I think we should really aim for the stars, and really go for it. And so now we are planning to actually shop it around here in the US with some high-profile producers. And I think there's also something really just radical about getting a project like this that has an ostensibly Filipino premise produced by and starring high-profile American actors.
Yep. I'm so excited. This is super exciting. I got goosebumps. Seriously, I'm like
gosh.
not even kidding.
I
Just
feel
so excited
like
for you.
tropical gothic describes Kat and I's like aesthetic because we both are self-described goths that grew up listening to like
I still
Echo
have
and
my
the
velvet
Bunny
cape in my closet. But
And
yes.
the history of it, I think Joe Bernardo, one of our hosts who's not on, is going to be really jealous that he's not on to talk about.
Yeah, he's our historian. He's a
He's our
PhD in
historian.
history, so he was gonna be psyched.
Sorry, Joe.
I'm sure this is also going to get announced at some point this week or next, but a cable network has also ordered a script of a pilot episode for a TV series that I'm developing. So yeah, I really I want to leverage the momentum that I'm having from Lingua Franca.
Leverage it all. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes,
gosh. We'll
absolutely.
be cheering you on.
Cheers to you.
We'll be
Seriously,
cheering you on
this
all
is
the way.
this is awesome. Like I'm part of. Sorry, we would ask you like what your next projects would be. No idea that you're kind of already like on it. So we're just super happy. We're just super happy for you. This is amazing, and yeah, that's yeah. They should be knocking.
Yeah, it's
on your doors.
extraordinary. Yes.
Yeah,
It's
Dang it.
extraordinary. I mean, we saw the all the accolades that Lingua Franca received, and just so excited. And it's huge that Netflix and their incredible platform, and then of course coming in on the Array slate, which celebrates the independent filmmaker and the emerging filmmaker. I mean, it's just incredible, and to make that jump so that there's just this access, especially in this time of COVID where we can't, escape into the movie theater, the air-conditioned movie theater, because it's super hot right now. Sorry. But just love it that this is something that folks can see, like that our community can see, and have that access to, is super, super exciting.
I love it. Yeah, I love because like when Crazy Rich Asians was coming out, people kept going like there's like an Asian American momentum and whatnot, but it was very still much like a East Asian centric place. And then for you as a Filipina to be out here making Lingua Franca, making something called Tropical Gothic, which I swear to God, I'm going to write all over every journal. I'm going to start like just Tropical Gothic everything. I love that vibe. That's Mike, our whole house is going to be Tropical Gothic in a bit. Like I'm just letting you know right now. I love it. Like, and I just love that because like, and you were bringing up how like the subtlety and whatnot and like existing, it kind of reminds me of that Elaine Welterworth quote, like when you exist in spaces that weren't built for you, sometimes just being you is the revolution. So like telling these stories, like telling our stories, telling your story, that is revolutionary. It's a revolutionary act in and of itself. And for us to be able to watch that is amazing. And for our audience to be like, the fact that you can go on Netflix right now, put in Lingua Franca, pull it up, and watch it, and watch a Filipino woman be in this film, also spit in some Bisaya in the background. So here's the funny thing. I didn't know whether or not I was hearing it right, because I've said this before. I grew up hearing both Bisaya and Tagalog. So I transpose the language each time. So when I hear something Filipino, I just immediately think it's Filipino. But then I looked and I was like, those words sound like my dad, like not speaking Tagalog. And I was just like, oh, is that Bisaya? And then I was texting everybody and I was just like, hey, is this a Bisaya film? Like, what's happening? And then my girlfriend was like, yes, it is. I heard it from the trailer. And I was like, oh my God, this is just like the layers of existence is just like super powerful. And I'm so excited for everybody to be able to see this film.
Yeah, it was deliberate on my part to open and end the film in Cebuano.
That was really cool.
I'm sneaking it in there.
Yeah, right on.
Can you talk more about Array and how that kind of came to be, and like what has it also brought to kind of getting this film out there?
Yeah, we've been in touch with Array since the fall. Right when we had our US premiere at AFI Fest in LA, and we've stayed in touch. And this summer they officially made an offer to acquire the film, which we're very, very thrilled and excited about. Ava has always championed and amplified the voices of underrepresented filmmakers. And Array itself has quite a formidable lineup of independent films that it's distributed. Very recently, it's released Burning Cane by Philip Yeoman, sa premiere at Tribeca, and then also went to Venice, Jezebel by Numa Perrier, The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open, which premiered at the Berlinale, and that was directed by an indigenous filmmaker. So it's so exciting, especially now that we're, premiering on Netflix. The whole marketing and PR team, Sharon and the president, Telaine Jones, have been working incredibly hard to get the film out there and reach out, to you guys as well. So, it's just a dream come true to be working with Ava, who's also very hands-on, and very involved. I'm not even sure if Ava goes to sleep because she is, doing so many projects right now. So I'm very grateful that she's also quite hands-on in the release of, a film like Lingua Franca. And she is an inspiration. If I feel like, I've accomplished something with Lingua Franca, seeing her, being out there and championing all these filmmakers and, giving an opportunity to new, exciting voices, like makes me want to work my butt off even harder, and hopefully create opportunities for other filmmakers like myself, other Filipino and Filipino-American filmmakers like myself.
So wonderful.
Yeah, me and Elaine live in historic Filipino town, and so when Array came to the neighborhood, we really appreciated the fact that they reached out to the neighborhood here in Filipino town and really, tried to make sure that, we got a chance to understand what Array meant to this community and what this community could also mean to Array. And so,
and if I remember right, their inaugural kind of series of screenings featured Filipino filmmakers. So that was awesome. Diane Paragas, I think, was there. Yellow Rose.
Yes. Mike and I watched one of this old 70s film starring Nora Honor.
Oh no, which one?
Oh, Once Like a Moth. I have to say it in English because I will ruin the Tagalog.
Gamo.
Yes, it was. It's a 70s Filipino film, but it was very heavy-handed, and I was just like, even in the 70s, you're trying to give a message film, it's gonna be Filipino, like with that heavy messaging, like the like, we're gonna be very obvious what we mean here. Just a question, like a final question, so be mindful of your time. What advice do you have for young Filipino Americans who are out there trying to like pursue film?
For those who are starting out, I didn't have a mentor myself, but I really wanted to distinguish myself, from other artists and filmmakers out there, knowing that I didn't have any money, a lot of, you don't start out with, a lot of the high budget, production budget. It's just try to be as unique and distinctive and singular as you can in your filmmaking, whether thematically or in terms of your style. Do what no one else is doing. Make the film that no one else is making. And, film festival programmers or industry types are not necessarily looking for the most technically polished work or the one with the highest budget. They're looking for exciting and original voices. And that was the route that I took for myself. Like when I made Señorita, which was kind of a pulpy noir film, it was very different from the films that were being made in the Philippines at that time. And that kind of got my foot in the door in the art house film scene, and slowly I gained a following, and that's what I have been doing. Like with each new project, I set my ambitions higher. I took more risks, and I've been lucky for the most part that they've paid off. And allow yourself to make mistakes, especially early on in your career, because that's when the mistakes are cheaper.
That's right.
A high price when you make mistakes early on, and
More freedom.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, if there aren't any more questions from our crew, we can wrap it up here. And we want to say, well, is there any? Are we good? We want to say thank you so much, Isabel, for spending this time with us. It was wonderful to meet you and to talk to you and to watch your film. And we're definitely going to be cheering it on through our own channel. So, if there's, anything else you'd like to leave us with, and also how can we stay in touch with you? Can folks, hit you up on social media or follow you or anything? Let us, what are your handles?
Thank you, Kat, Aline, Ryan, and Mike for having me on the podcast. It's, I really had a lovely time talking with you guys about being Filipino, Filipino American, Lingua Franca, and opportunities for, Filipino artists and filmmakers. For anyone who's interested in following me on social media, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is at Isabel, Isabel, and then letter V as in Victor, and then my last name Sandoval, Sandoval. So that's at Isabel V. Sandoval on both Twitter and Instagram.
Wonderful.
Thank
Yay,
you so
awesome.
much.
Hey.
Everyone watch Lingua Franca Netflix today, right now. And hashtag Lingua Franca watch party with Cinema Sala.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
This Filipino American Life is produced by Michael Nailat. Our intro and outro music is by Roger Habon, aka 10.4 Raj. Resident reality checker Girly Colado, legal advisor Rianne Fajardo, and graphic design by Vincent Collyer.